So the first part of Mexico's Children, Rodriguez is describing Mexican farm workers who would live in California for part of the year and then live in Mexico for part of the year. He says, after the tomatoes and the melons and the grapes had been picked, it was time for Mexicans to load up their cars and head back into Mexico for the winter. The school teacher said out loud to my mother what a shame it was that the Mexicans did that, took their children out of school. So I think that's interesting because essentially this school teacher, which you can assume she's white, is just like totally taken back by the fact that parents would choose to like have their kids live in two different places and like not finish school all in the same place. But what Rodriguez brings to light is that there's no one thing that Rodriguez is really, I think, trying to emphasize is that they want to be able to do this, and he also touches on how the vast majority of Mexican Americans always have lived in the southwestern United States, and I think he's kind of saying, like, they can go other places, but, like, a lot of Mexican immigrants who come to the United States want to stay close to Mexico because they're only in the U.S. for, like, monetary reasons, and they want to be able to have work, and they know people and distant relatives or, like, a friend of a friend who can get them work in the United States, and so they want to come here to be able to do that, but then they want to be able to go back to Mexico, and they don't want to stay in the United States. So he says, for 3 or 4 generations now, Mexican villages have lived under the rumor of America, a rumor vaguer than paradise. America exists in thousands of maternal prayers and in thousands of pubescent dreams. Everyone knows someone who has been. Everyone knows someone who never came back. So the first part of Mexico's Children, Rodriguez is describing Mexican farm workers that would live in California for part of the year and then would live in Mexico for the winter time and when it wasn't like harvest season. And so he says, after the tomatoes and the melons and the grapes had been picked, it was time for Mexicans to load up their cars and head back into Mexico for the winter. The school teacher said aloud to my mother what a shame it was the Mexicans did that, took their children out of school. So I think that's interesting to say, or for him to include, because just based on the school teacher's reaction and like kind of like is quick to judge the Mexican farm workers, you can assume that she's probably white and is completely just ignorant of what these like families would be going through, and that it would be difficult for like the children at least to like always have to like go back and forth and to be moving. And I think even more so though, I think Rodriguez is saying that a lot of Mexican farm workers, they want to be able to go back to Mexico, and even though America is like made to be like this like dreamland and like this opportunity, or the comedy that he describes in the introduction, a lot of people, like he also says in the introduction, like himself, choose that tragedy of Mexico, and people want to be able to go back to Mexico and would probably choose to stay in Mexico their entire lives if it weren't for just having the opportunity to work in the United States. He also touches on how the vast majority of Mexican Americans live in southwestern United States or like Southwest California, and that this is like a lot of the time by choice, and there are other groups of Mexican Americans like dispersed like in larger populations throughout the U.S., but a lot of immigrants from Mexico choose to stay close to Mexico because of that accessibility and once again because they want to be able to go back there. And